So it's quite simply what we did was we recreated a crashed car, and we used some very high-tech sports tracking equipment. So we have a specialty sports science department which traditionally measures a long jumper's jump, perhaps, or a golfer's swing, in measuring the dynamics and the actual movement that takes place. So we used that technology. We had quite a sophisticated £250,000 camera system. We rigged trial patients with electrode sensors on the head, on the neck, on the chest, and then we went through all the various methods and the skills that we've taught about getting people out of cars. The biomechanical analysis then tells us which of these techniques causes the least and indeed the most movement of the neck, which is the area we're most clinically worried about in car crash victims. And as you suggest, the results do seem to have caused a little bit of a flutter, because it seems that perhaps the old dogma of doing things the way we've always done them isn't perhaps always the best.
When people are being extricated from cars, at what point did you find that the cervical spine was most at risk?
Yeah, I think the way we had to measure a spine, if you imagine a spine doesn't just move in one direction or another, it's a three-dimensional, it's called an absolute vector, so our heads move in many different directions. So we actually, using this mechanical model, was measured this complete movement in all directions during the actual transit from the standard sitting position to the actual extrication of the vehicle. So technically it is an averaging of the movement which takes place from the seated position to the complete extrication to the ambulance stretcher.
Okay, so what I understand you found was that if you asked people to self-extricate, there was in fact less movement than when they were put in certain devices. Can you expand on that for me?
I can indeed, and that's perhaps the most radical finding of the study. If you're injured and you're able to look after yourself, that's what the human body does. So if you've got a bad back, you don't move your back. If your arm's sore, you don't move your arm. If your neck's sore, then again the theory is that people will self-splint and people don't move their head, and in fact if we get them to gently and slowly, under controlled instruction, get themselves out, that was actually the method which caused the least amount of movement in the neck area. So that the implementation of any device, I'm sure you're familiar with the traditional collars or some of the boarding devices, they actually cause more movement of the neck than quite simply saying, you look well, everything seems to be working, gently follow my instructions and we get you to walk out of the vehicle.
So, and obviously it's important to stress that is for the fully conscious patient who isn't suffering a head injury or isn't suffering substances or whatever that might alter their sensorium.
Absolutely, and I think we have to be quite emphatic. It's one of the limitations is they have to be assessed clinically first by somebody who knows what to look for.
Sure.
So it's only for those people that fall under distinct clinical categories. But if they do, then yes.
Yeah.